This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone, from South Africa. It may be good afternoon or good evening wherever you are, but here the sun is coming up. This is time for our sunrise safari. It's already quite high in the sky, as you can see, so we've got enough light to work with. The skies are clear, which is absolutely glorious. I'm not a fan of overcast days. Although it's chilly, at least the sun is out. So what that means, everyone, is you guys must get ready, jump on board, because it's that time of day for your live bumble through the bush. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for jumping on board. Just in time for the sunrise safari of today. And really, I know I say this every day, but it's cold. Winter's here. I've double layered up, but I'm still not wearing long pants. My name is Lauren. I do have Impo on camera today. And just so you all know, Tristan is wearing long pants today. Can you believe it? No, I can't. So we'll just give you some more magical views of quarantine, because it really is absolutely stunning, especially since the vegetation has subsided and we can see now, we get that beautiful sort of silhouette coming through the trees. It's perfect. This is the best place to check for tracks and also sounds to see if you can hear alarm calls or saws or roars. It really is the best place in the morning. So I'm glad you're all here with us. And you know this safari is not only live, but it's interactive. So please do send in your questions. Good questions, challenge us, make us think. Send in your comments and anything else you wish to tell us. You do that by using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. You can also use @FC on the YouTube chat. You can head over to the WildEarth website, register, and then submit your questions under the live safari page. Or kids, if you're watching, please do talk to us. You must send in your questions via email, so we are alerted to them immediately. And that email address is kidsequestions@wildearth.tv. Ah, isn't that beautiful? Shall we bumble and pull? I think we should. Now, I've already heard the hyena den is not active on the radio, but we may as well try and see if we can get lucky. They will need sun, they will need vitamin D, especially the little cubs at some point. And now that the sun is out, you never know, they might pop out for some fresh air and a little bit of vitamin D. I can imagine it gets really smelly and uncomfortable in that den. So I think it's just a matter of being lucky, going there at the right time. And hopefully there's an adult. That's the tricky part. Everybody's hungry, it's cold. Since I was last here, and that's only a 2-week gap, the temperature change is absolutely incredible. I was not wearing a jacket the last time I was here. So I think that that's obviously going to affect the daily patterns. It's a seasonal change. It's going to affect everybody, even the impalas. Hello, mister. Are you cold? Yes, I'm also cold. But you're looking fine. He's alone, no ladies around him.
Good morning from a very frosty Tswalu. I'm Deirdre. I apologise about losing Juma there, but on camera with me this morning is BK. He doesn't have gloves on yet, but he's going to learn very quickly that he's going to need them. But we've got a beautiful sunrise starting, but not quite there yet. We just going to be patiently waiting, and as we wait for the sunrise, so do the meerkats, which is probably our plan for this morning. We'll see which group we can get an update from, and we'll see from there, but they're also waiting for that sun to come up. There's a little bit of an icy breeze, so that does tend to affect the animals quite a bit. So it's quite chilly this morning. So yesterday, I know Lauren said she misses BK's socks. He's wearing his chili pepper socks this morning. She can let Lauren know. She says she misses his socks. Maybe that's the feeling of warmth, BK, if you're wearing your chili socks. So we would be looking for any animals hiding at this stage with that cold breeze, generally underneath the bushes, or like a lot of animals at Tswalu, they have a burrow, so they'll be underground. This will affect the meerkats, even though the sun comes out. If they stick their heads out and it's an icy wind like this, they probably just pop straight back down the hole and wait it out and see what happens from there. Tammy is asking the question, does it snow in the Kalahari? So no, we don't get snow here, but we do get frost. So we do anticipate some frost when we have some of the cold fronts coming in, but no snow at all. I don't know what I'd do if it was snowing. It's cold enough here, but on top of snow. So South Africa at the moment is having quite a lot of snow in the Drakensberg mountains, as well as on the boundary Lesotho, another country. They're also having lots of snow at the moment, and that's often when we get these icy cold winds, but probably not the winds we're experiencing. We're a little bit far away from the Drakensberg, but I know other areas of South Africa will certainly be affected by that ice cold snow on top of the Drakensberg mountains. I'm sure that the guides in Pindar are a little bit chilly as a result. Let's carry on driving and see what we might come across this morning. So even the birds, I can see we're coming up to a white-browed sparrow weaver nest. They'd also probably just decide that they stay in for the morning until the sun comes up and warms up enough. So these little grass nests here, a really nice warm spot. And when there's no one breeding, sometimes there'll be 2 or 3 birds in one little nest, all snug, tucked up together. So while we're speaking of weather, we're going to send you across for the weather update.
Good morning and welcome to Ambion Lingala, where we have found something really special. There's a black-backed jackal that's busy hunting in the grass, and he's still chasing a little mouse. Let's just have a look. He's picked it up once or twice and dropped it again. But this is actually something you don't often see. So I just want us to enjoy this for the moment. Oh, he's dropped it again. can't really see what mouse it is, but it's definitely got a white belly and a grey back. And I'm wondering if the little mouse is actually biting the jackal on the nose, because it keeps dropping it every now and then. Julia, you are 100% right. This is a beautiful black-backed jackal, and I'm so very happy to have found this early in the morning with the morning light on it, and to see this behavior of it busy hunting in the morning. This is really, really exceptional. And now he's lying down. I'm pretty sure that rodent is already dead. Maybe the little tossing around and throwing and biting is... Even I would be surprised if it's like play behavior, like it's nibbling it a little bit, almost like a cat would potentially play with something. Because if it was still alive and it's on the ground, every now and then when that jackal lifts up and looks around, that little mouse would have ran off very, very quickly. But my name is Fred. And behind the camera we've got Craig, and what an absolutely stunning way to start our morning with this jackal. I just want to see if it's still lying down there. Look at that. And just as quick as that, it's finished. You can just imagine it now sniffing and nibbling probably between its toes just to see if there's any little bits and pieces that are left. So I'm pretty sure this jackal doesn't want to miss one scrap of it. So this is actually just very interesting. I just want to see, I think this one is still busy looking for something to eat. You can see he keeps sniffing in between the grass. I think what we'll do is we'll stay with this jackal just to see what he gets up to. And in the meantime, we're going to send you over to Deirdre, who's also managed to find a jackal.
And we also have a jackal that's playing hide and seek. It was trotting right nice next to the vehicle until it landed up going behind one of those bushes over there. So I think that's probably a good way to stay warm this morning, would be to consistently keep trotting. Do you see it there, BK? Let me go forward. It was trotting parallel with us for a while, and then it just disappeared. He's behind one of those bushes, so also playing hide and seek. For them now, with this wind, it is favourable for hunting because the prey can't necessarily hear them or smell them. So he's definitely opportunistic. But no, BK's gone. Well, maybe that was his second option, was to tuck himself nicely and warm in the bush. I don't blame him. He's, totally gone. Nice, nice for him. There's some of these little bushes with this little thickets that are really, really nice places for some of the animals to hide, and quite well protected as well from the wind. So he's actually the only thing we've seen moving this morning. is that jackal. The birds will take a while. It's too cold for them to start moving just yet. If they're tucked up nice and warm in a nest, that's where they're going to stay. Ingrid said the jackals are already hard at work this morning. They are indeed. You can always know that a jackal is busy looking for something. And now as we go into our winter here, so more and more of the animals will come out in the warmer winter mornings, especially the nocturnal animals, and even late afternoon they'll come out foraging much earlier because of the sudden temperature drop overnight. They do tend to spend a lot more time in the nice winter days out foraging. So out in these sort of big open clearings, we're looking for gemsbok, we're looking for springbuck, we're looking for eland. So send us your comments as to what you do on a cold day. I certainly would think wrapped up under a nice thick duvet with a hot chocolate, reading a good book.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
So we're out, now we're in sort of an area that's got quite a lot of the sour grass, so a little bit more challenging. The sour grass is probably about anywhere between 40 centimeters up to a meter in height. So that does tend to hide small animals like jackal, even little bat-eared foxes. So we just keep looking. Sometimes you find some interesting things pop out on the road in front of you. Some bird in that thicket, but he flew out the other end. Oh, we've got two, looks like some doves on the road. What a nice Cape turtle dove. So they'd be looking for little, see, so laughing dove on the left, a little bit smaller, and Cape turtle dove on the right. Gives you a nice size comparison. And they'll be looking for little insects, sometimes some seeds. And that was a gust of wind, and off they went. So some animals, when it's windy like this, they just have to wait a little bit longer before they get to go out foraging, because it's so cold that they waste their energy trying to keep themselves warm, and it's energy that they're not gaining back. So they do tend to wait it out a little bit, try and stay warm before moving out in this type of weather. So it sounds like Fred's jackal is still active. We're going to send you across to Fred.
So spending time with this jackal has been a real treat this morning. We've seen some really interesting behavior. Just now there was two Swainson spurfowl that was walking pretty close to where this jackal was on the ground busy chewing on a little stick. And I almost wondered if they're a little bit curious, because they came closer, and you heard them calling a little bit. And eventually this jackal just got up and he sort of ran towards them. And obviously they just made a very, very big noise as they flew off. So I don't think they're going to come too close now. So this jackal, like I said, this morning we saw him hunting and catching one mouse. They've got quite a wide variety of things that they would eat, ranging from insects to birds to even sometimes fruit, and even carrion. You know, they are very good scavengers. So in this area where we've got high density of predators, of lion, leopard, wild dog, even cheetah on occasion, whenever they manage to kill something, whatever's left of that carcass, there's always little bits of pieces, and jackal would very, very easily go and go find something to eat there. I think this jackal has heard something on the left behind us here. He's having a good look just to see and listen. So I can see this one's very, very aware of what's happening around him. It'll be interesting to see if he's going to continue foraging. No, it looks like he's content early morning, just busy grooming himself and waking up and making use of the early morning sun. What a lovely view. So Maurice is asking, what's the biggest animal a jackal will hunt? So they can catch anything the size of a small antelope. And to put it into perspective in terms of size, something like an impala lamb is very much in the range of possibility what a jackal would be able to catch. However, generally the majority of the diet is smaller things, particularly rodents, scrub hare, birds. But so this time of year we have a lot of, well, not so many small lambs at the moment, and given just a few months' time, because we now are currently in the impala rutting season, which is around April, May is the peak of the rut. So if we come around November, December, there's going to be lots and lots of baby impala lambs in this area, and then most likely this jackal would take the opportunity to change his diet and focus then on those smaller lambs. Very, very successful animals. I mean, they can adapt and survive in most terrains, and with a wide diet variety of things to eat, they can survive almost anywhere. So it's very possible that this individual is part of a breeding pair. So Candace is asking, why are they never found in groups? Well, I think the ones that we've seen this morning, and possibly the one you saw at Tswalu, might have been alone. It's not uncommon to find them alone, but you do get them in groups, or at least more than one. So often you'll have a breeding pair, and the only other individuals you'll find with them is if they have pups. Those pups will sometimes be with them if they're already out of the holes in the ground and moving around foraging with the parents. Then you might see a group of 5 to 6 jackal all moving around, but that would be the mother and the father with the youngsters. And sometimes even those youngsters will stay on for almost another breeding season, helping with the rearing of the new pups. So in a case like that, you would actually see quite a few jackal together, but most of the time we see them either alone, like this one, or as a breeding pair together. So an area like this is actually ideal for jackal. Nice open areas with lots of grass, and also burrows under the ground where they can den, which is ideally what they're looking for. And in an area like this, they don't necessarily dig their own den sites. What they will rely on is an animal like an aardvark, which is mainly an animal that digs looking for termites and ants. And they very, very strong diggers, and often also they will sleep underground and they make these big burrows. And the jackals like this will go stay in den site like that. But I think what we'll do, this jackal looks like he's starting to rest for the morning. I think we'll leave him be and then continue on with our search and see what else we can find this morning. For the time being, we're going to send you over to Steve.
Good morning. Welcome to the dawn here on Eco Training Prylands, where it is a magnificent 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Hello everybody, my name is Steve, joined by Gert on camera, and we're doing a little bit of sun basking this morning. It has been quite fresh, but the wind has dissipated, which is great, and it is a magnificent, clear morning. But Gert pointed out something that I didn't really notice last time. Here we are at Leopard Dam, and if you recall last time, everybody was always commenting on how muddy and murky the water was. And look how it's cleared up. And I remember discussing why it was so muddy and murky. That's because elephants were swimming in it constantly. But as with a glass of water that you have with sediment, it eventually settles. So the dam settles itself, and you can actually now see into the water because, well, we haven't had an elephant swimming here since I've been back. It's not as hot as it was. So eventually everything does settle once again. So our objectives this morning are just to take a little bumble around, see what we can find. There was a leopard found just after we got back to the vehicle last night, pretty much in the same area we were walking. I'm not sure if it's a male or female, but it was only seen very briefly. We're going to see if we can find some of its tracks and then detail a little bit about that. But other than that, take it nice and easy on this cold morning, waiting for the sun to warm us up. So please do send through any questions and comments that you might have for us here on Pridelands. Florence, well, it's hard to say. I mean, the elephants have still been swimming around in Ndlovu Dam. That's where our camp is based. So I've never seen elephants swim so much in my life. They seem to just love swimming on Pridelands. I've seen elephants swimming a number of times in my life, but it's always been a very special thing. And now on Pridelands, it seems to be just sort of the run-of-the-mill. I don't know if we'll see any swimming today. I don't think it's warm enough for them to, but the sun is out, the clouds have dissipated, the wind is gone, and the wind was what was bringing the cold air from the south. There was snow in the mountains, so it's possible today is going to warm up a little bit. Last night it was very cold, and I'm really excited to announce that I bought a new sleeping bag. And it has proven to be a very, very good purchase. I haven't even noticed the cold in the sleeping bag, which is, I suppose, what you want, isn't it? Okay, well, we're going to do a little turn around the dam, see what else we can pick up on while we send you over to Deirdre, who's on the search for an animal.
So we've also come to one of our dams, and all we can find is one very brave shelduck that's decided to paddle in the water. Yeah, I'd also be getting out with the water temperatures. So that's the female with a nice white head, and then the male with the grey head. So, South African shelduck. And they seem to be the dominant pair at this stage at the dam. They've taken over from the Egyptian goose. So they take turns. And relatively soon, I'm sure that they're going to have a nest somewhere nearby in a nice little aardvark burrow, or the last nest that this pair is probably likely the same pair nested in was actually a spring hare hole. But sometimes it's just a quick dunk, wet the feathers, and then come out and groom. So very, very important what they're doing there is they're fetching oil from the preen gland and then sort of using their beak to zip their feathers all back together, and that'll help also keep them warm, but also keep them partially waterproof and a bit more buoyant. Sure. This wind really is howling at the moment. We have, I'm going to go forward because I can see two gemsbok over here. They might be on their way to the water. Let me just go forward a bit. They're also a little bit, they're standing on the one side of a thicket. maybe just a little bit more shelter from the wind. So male on the left, and I'm not too sure. Looking at the horns, I'd say a female on the right, but it's just the two of them. So you can see how the grass is moving and this wind is really strong. Jasmine is asking the question, can their horns grow back if they break? No, unfortunately, all the African antelope, they sort of a solid bone on the inside with a layer of keratin. But if you had antlers, then the antlers are the ones that if they shed their antlers on an annual basis, those can grow back. But horns on a gemsbok, no, they're not able to grow back. You can actually see he is cold, and you just look at how the hair is almost standing up. So he's almost fluffed himself up so that there'll be that body heat that's getting lost is getting trapped in almost like an air pocket or an air bubble on the skin. So he is cold. I don't blame him. Don't know if he wants to. Oh, well, it's bathroom time. Darcy's comment is they are gorgeous. They are one of my favourites. Oh, the other guy, what is he doing? He's horning the bushes. Why not? Let's see. No, that definitely doesn't help. Okay, BK, we'll go forward. I'll pop out in front of us. Some way. How is that possible? Oh, there they are. There they are. How is it possible that two gemsboks just totally disappear? I'm going to go just a little bit further forward into this opening. A little bit more. There we go. So yes, both males there. They don't look incredibly relaxed, and that's most likely because of the wind. Just, it really is messing with their senses, their hearing. And this is a very, very common spot for the two male cheetah. So, when you don't know, just move out. So we're still waiting for the sun to come up because the meerkats definitely don't Mike's asking the question, do they have a breeding season? So the gemsbok will do a seasonal thing based on the rains and the success of the females. Just going to turn here. We're heading in the general direction of the meerkats, but the sun hasn't touched their burrows just yet, so they certainly all still cuddled up and underground at this stage. Let's see what else we can find near the dam. When you turn face into that wind, it's quite a cold breeze. It even takes your breath away. almost at the meerkat burrows and the sun is almost above the mountain there. Hopefully we'll be with them soon.
Founded in 1973, the Endangered Wildlife Trust has consistently and effectively worked towards achieving our conservation legacy. Contribute to this legacy by visiting EWT's Get Wild eShop and purchase products with a purpose.
The reason why we see that wildebeest by himself is because he's a male, or a bull, as we typically would call him. And what he does is that he marks and defends an area. Essentially, he is looking for the ultimate piece of land or prime property. Needs to have good grazing, needs to have a water source close by. And not too far away from here, there's a sickle bush thicket that would provide just enough shelter from the wind and the rain.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Hi everyone, my name's Daniel Fisher and I'm going to be your guide this afternoon. What is my favorite animal and why? I think I'd have to say a lion. Being able to try and follow them and understand their movements and dynamics is super interesting. People often underestimate them and think that they sleep all the time, but once they get up and start moving around, they are fascinating to watch, and watching them interact with one another is a super highlight for me. If I can pass on this passion and this enthusiasm for lions and prides of lions into a guest that's sitting at home, that's what I'm really going for.
And there it is, that's our sunshine. It's coming. We're just waiting. You can actually see there's a lot of dust on top of the mountain there as well. It's a nice little haze. Yeah, these are the days that when the wind is so strong like this, it actually becomes quite difficult to track, because anything that's fresh, it gets eroded so quickly that you can start on a trail, and by the time you finish on the trail, all you're seeing is just holes in the soil. That's all that's left. Susan is saying, what a lovely view, and she can just imagine all the fresh air. I can tell you that fresh has two meanings for BK and I this morning, because it's definitely got a little bit of a... the cheeks definitely feel very fresh this morning. We're going to go forward a little bit because we're not too far from one of the burrow systems that we believe that the Makalas are at, and we might be able to see them from the road. The sun is touching the burrows now, so the first one or two might think it's a good idea to stick their heads out, but with this wind, I think it's going to be a very short-lived good morning. Oh, that bird there, BK, the one that just flew away. There's a couple in that tree. Oh wow, that's a lot. That's a big group there in that shepherd's tree. So it's not something that we see. It's not a common bird here, is the yellow-billed hornbill, and we don't tend to see them in groups. But the other day, okay, there's one. Oh, there's 2, 3. The other day I counted 28, which even in the bird books, when you read up the yellow-billed hornbills are not typically in such large groups, but there are a couple there. Yeah, that's the sun worshipper for sure. He's just waiting. He's holding on tight to that branch. He's just getting blown around all over the place, but appreciating that morning sunlight. Taryn is asking the question, why do all birds find shelter to keep warm when it's cold? Because they've only got a layer of feathers. So puffing themselves up like that, they're trapping that warm body heat that's escaping in like an air pocket around them. And then, so basically, they'll just sit nice and warm and snug together. And apparently the question was, why don't all birds? Maybe some are just better at handling the cold weather. I mean, think about the penguins. They live where it's totally icy. And they've just got thicker fat layers then to help them deal with the colder temperatures. So hornbills they'll have holes in trees, but that's predominantly for nesting. So when they're not nesting, then they've just got to find a perch. I think I found that big group because there's two there. There's at least 6 to 8 in the tree in front of us. So it is something very unique to see the number of hornbills, yellow-billed hornbills in particular, that we're seeing here. But they are struggling to fly as they go between the trees as wind alters their flight path. He's even tucked his neck there into his shoulders. I say he, but difficult to say. Vivian's comment is his position reminds her of a bird sitting on a nest. He's certainly chilly. They really are. They're even struggling to fly. the one's trying to get to the same tree as this one and ended up getting swept completely sideways. So all those things cost energy for birds. If it's very windy like this and they're not able to get to where they want to go, that costs energy. So hence the reason why you just sit and wait it out, wait for the wind to stop. And these hornbills will definitely be making a nice snack out of those armoured ground crickets. We had a big invasion of those, so definitely a good food source available for them. Incoming springbok, incoming. Oh, morning. If you want to see a surprise springbok, that's exactly it. He totally wasn't expecting us to be here. He's gone. That's it. He's gone. I don't know what spooked him, but he came running in and then it was like, oh, sorry. Let's head forward and see if we can get a glimpse of those meerkats. Sam is asking the question, do these birds mate for life? Yes, hornbill are known as monogamous pairs. So monogamous meaning mating for life. If something happened to one of the pairs, they would then find a new partner, but otherwise they do stick together. And that saves a lot of time. Initially you have all that courtship and everything's very elaborate, and then if your partner is a good provider, year after year you save a lot of time. You just know what each one in the group has to do. So they'll build their nest, they'll find their food, and pre-breeding season they'll just have sort of like a courtship ritual, and then they'll carry on from there. So mating for life definitely does save a lot of time and energy. Let's see. Okay, I don't know if we park here or down there, but we're going to have a look and see if any of the meerkats, the macalas, have popped out from their burrow. Yet this is the one that they decided to go down into last night. There's that little collection of burrows there. Azai is asking the question, do the burrows get flooded when it rains? They're quite lucky in that most of the burrows are very sandy, so the soil and the water will drain through pretty quickly, but drowning burrows is a risk for meerkats. But very often they'll make a little bit of a shelf, so they'll go down and then the burrow will actually go up into a bit of a shelf. But in the Kalahari, most of it is very, very well drained soils, so that the water does move through very quickly. The sun hasn't quite got here yet. It's on its way. It's creeping slowly, and we generally use that indicator. It's almost like it comes as a line, slowly, and as soon as it starts covering the burrows, that's when we tend to see the meerkats. I can hear one or two of the birds starting to call now. Maybe they think it's now that the sun's up, they've got to start making sure that everybody knows that they own some territory. So they are calling now. We're still waiting. Waiting for meerkats is a patience game, especially with chilly weather like this. And normally in the beginning it's only one or two that pop out and check and then go back down underground and give the others feedback as to whether it's worth coming out or not. So we're going to stand by here. We're going to send you across to Steve that's got something to show you.
Thanks, Deirdre. Well, lovely to be out and about. The sun is definitely warming us up this side, and amazing that the sun is only rising in Tswalu now. It's going to be very cold there. So we've got another tree, and this is a acacia. This is the nigrescens, the knobthorn, that's been pushed over by elephants. And once again, as we saw yesterday, due to wind, trees fall over. But when the ground was quite muddy and quite wet, this tree would have been a lot easier to push over. It's possible that it was blown over by wind, but I don't think so. I think this one was physically pushed over. The roots have been physically fed upon over here. An elephant is able to break those roots. You can actually see that was in an elephant's mouth. He did the grinding, and all the way around the tree as well at the top there is feeding signs where an elephant had broken with its tusk and then feeding on the roots. We know the roots have got lots of nutrients, lots of minerals, and acacias are all part of the legume family, which means they are nitrogen fixers. And for those of you who've never heard of a nitrogen fixer before, basically it's trees that have got a symbiotic relationship with a bacteria that forms around the roots. So, for example, if this solid root over here, let's look at it over there, that solid bit there is the root. The bacteria forms around the root there, and it makes lots of little filamentous, fibrous root systems as well, which assist in absorbing nutrients as well. But what they are able to do is they're able to take nitrogen out of the atmosphere, because there is 70% of the atmospheric air is made out of nitrogen, and so the bacteria is able to take that nitrogen in a gas form and fix it into the soil in a form of nitrates, which then are usable or used by the tree. And nitrogen is the biggest growing element in any tree. If you want a tree to grow, you give it nitrogen. Obviously, there's lots of synthetic nitrogens out there, but bacteria, rhizobacteria, are able to naturally fix it in the soil, and lightning also fixes nitrogen in the soil. So very, very important. Where you have legumes growing, you often have symbiotic, or you have beneficial sort of elements to many plants around. But as we can see, once again, the tree's pushed over. Seemingly, it should die, but these trees are adapted to this disturbance, everybody, and you'll notice up and down on the branches that it is still very much alive. Ow. Now, a knobthorn leaf. Ruth, you possibly could. The knobthorn doesn't make the nicest tree fiber. A lot of the acacias are very good for making fiber, but I haven't tried to make it out of the knobthorn. But when we talk about leaves, once again, this is an entire leaf. The entire thing is a leaf, and then is divided a second time. So this is twice divided. All of our acacia species are bipinnately compound, twice divided, and this is the largest of the twice divided leaves that you'll come across. The black monkey thorn, which is also an acacia, looks quite similar, but the leaves are much smaller, or the leaflets are much smaller. So these trees are fed upon by pretty much everything that eats vegetation out here. And by the elephants pushing this tree over, they facilitated steenbok, duiker, impala, the ability to now feed on this tree. And we go around to the top. We notice big elephant bulls, they like to do this, like to push over a tree, impress the ladies, and then all of the other elephants that are around, they hear the cracking sound of a tree snapping or uprooting, and they came charging in to feed on the tree itself. And notice over here, this is an entire branch that went through an elephant's mouth for accessing the bark. Process known as corkscrewing, as we said, and that's gone through an elephant's mouth. Crack, 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 and then drops it onto the ground. So once again, wood being broken down, put on the floor, lots of shade elements, lots of areas for insects and microorganisms to grow and survive. So we think it's destruction, and it is. It is destruction, but it's natural disturbance. I mean, have a look at how this tree has been absolutely decimated from the top. All of these branches broken, snapped, eaten, but not all of it. The tree is still alive, and it will regrow, and it will sort of colonate this area, changing the shade element. But it is something that we are seeing a lot of in the Kruger. The knobthorns specifically and the marulas are being overutilized. We're seeing a loss of them as large trees, and what we know about the knobthorn is this is the preferred tree for our large raptors for breeding. You find any sort of martial eagle or vulture, battalier as well, generally nesting in these tall trees, because out of all the trees we come across here, this is probably one of the most inaccessible for many animals to go through. Not completely inaccessible, but a little bit more tricky than others. So the loss of these trees as adults is well noted. But what we are also noticing, and as that Impala shouts over there, is we're not seeing too much of the recruitment of these babies. A lot of the young knobthorns, young marulas, we're not finding them around. And what do? We think it's all elephants, but herds of Impala moving through, feeding on the babies as well. Vincent, no, the other animals that eat bark, black rhino will feed on the bark of euphorbias, and porcupine will eat the bark of trees as well as the root bark. They'll physically dig in and they'll access the bark. And so porcupine's also quite well known for eating the roots of trees and eating low down in the bark of a tree. And what does that do? It opens up to insect damage and fire. It's a natural disturbance. That tree eventually will die, forming a habitat tree, falling down or staying upright. So elephants, porcupine, black rhino, you often find buffalo, kudu and impala will also thrash branches with their horns, also removing that bark element. So a lot of other animals also do damage trees to a degree, but it's all part and parcel of what has happened out here for eons, and many of these plants have become well adapted to it. So the disturbance factor in the savanna biome is pretty much what it's all about. So when a tree falls down like this, you can quite often find an entire herd of elephants moving right in. Depending on how many elephants there were, you'll actually see bits of dung. So here's a pile over here, there's a pile over here. So it almost seems as if there was only one elephant that did this. If there was more than one, because it takes them quite some time standing here feeding, they'll deposit dung. Elephants are dropping dung every 45 to 55 minutes. So it seems as if this was one individual who just moved around feeding, and had a jolly old time. And he's not looking for the leaves, he's looking for the bark, as you can clearly see. So 50 alien species, I'm guessing you're talking about insects or plants. I'm not sure. In the Kruger, the alien species that we find, the plant species, they've come in from the agricultural sector outside. They come in from the more permanent rivers. Here on Pridelands, there is a bit of a stream that runs in that fills here at Leopard Dam, which is bringing in some invasives from the west, but it's not a major river system. So I'm not noticing too much of an increase in invasive plants, but invasive plants are a massive issue in conservation. They have high seed loads. Some of them are quite toxic, quite poisonous. They also have the ability to take over an area, and the whole way that plants have evolved in this area is to design themselves around competition. So the trees are competing with each other, the trees are competing with the grasses to coexist in this area, all competing for soil, nutrients, for water, for light. But if you've got aliens moving in, they completely overwhelm an area, and they can have the ability to overwhelm completely. They can bring in different fire elements, but we don't see too much of that away from the river systems. Along the river systems in the Kruger, yes, there are some issues, and there's big programs involved to get rid of them. But insects, there are a few insects in Johannesburg specifically that are infecting a lot of the trees. There's a wood-boring beetle that is pretty much decimating a majority of the Johannesburg trees. So aliens are around. They have been all over the place for some time, but a lot of the plants that we find coming into the Kruger are coming from the outside, from the agriculture areas such as Mexican poppy, datura. None of them are a massive influence on the trees that we have here, but they have an impact, no doubt, on the ground cover, on the herbaceous layer, and on the wildflowers. Okay, we're just going to go for a little walk up the hill. Okay, well, we're going to just send you over to the dam cam for a silent moment.
So just look at them. This is the makalas, and they are also just cold. When they tuck themselves in like that and not stand up directly, you do know that they're still quite cold. The wind is blowing still quite strongly, but you can even see the little fur is fluffed out, so they fatten themselves up from the summer season, build a nice little fat layer, and then also their coat will get a little bit thicker so that they can handle these colder mornings, but definitely means slower starting when we get towards the winter months. So they're still doing their sort of burrow maintenance, but you can see not necessarily the straight up standing meerkats that we used to, hunched down a little bit, and that's also to limit the amount of surface area of the body that's exposed to this icy wind. There was a comment, I think, from Pearl that said, what a great sighting. And we can be lucky that they've decided to pop out this morning. They'll definitely stay here a little bit longer until the wind dies down. So they'll do burrow maintenance and stick around close to home. And then when it does stop blowing this much, when it sort of settles down a bit, then they'll go out foraging. But at the moment for them, everything is moving. There's grass, there's trees, there's the leaves, everything's shaking. They do feel vulnerable like that because they can't necessarily see the predators very well. And sometimes there are days like today that become sort of a food loss day, in that because they're staying at home trying to stay warm, stay in their shelter, they don't get the opportunity to feed, and that means that they're then using portions of that fat layer that they've built up. So by the end of the winter season, the meerkats sometimes get pretty skinny. So quite a few of these burrows will be interconnected, so they will move in between the burrows and pop out, so they'll go down one hole and pop out somewhere else. And Daniel says he's also feeling cold just by watching them. I'm sure in the mic you can actually hear the strength of this wind, and you can actually see it just on the speed at which the grass is moving, but what you cannot feel is the temperature. I think BK's got about 4 layers on. I know I've certainly got about 4 layers on, and that's the only way to stay warm out here. Oh. So wind and cold for meerkats is one thing, but then as soon as it starts raining, they'll definitely head under the burrow. Sorry, FC, you'll have to ask that question again. Sorry, BK, did you hear that question? I hear the questions coming from Susan, but with this wind, I'm losing half of it. He's just busy doing lots of housekeeping. Sounds like Dan is saying this is the highlight of the day, is the little meerkats. They certainly do bring joy to many a person that come and visit Tswalu. And we are very, very fortunate to have the 3 different groups that allow us in their presence like this. I mean, we're pretty much 7-8 meters away from them, and they are totally doing their normal day. They're not even fazed by us. They look past us, they look around us. They don't even pay us much attention at all. So I'm not too sure what time they'll get moving, but from here we'll move on and see if we can find any other creatures this morning.
Do you dream of an African holiday in unparalleled luxury? Where your days are spent in the company of wildlife and cooling off in your very own plunge pool? Well, this month's prize may be the one for you. Expertly camouflaged into the unspoiled environment of the world-famed Sabi Sand Game Reserve, it's hard not to fall in love with Simbambili. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer before the end of May, and you and a friend could be jetting off to this ultimate escape from reality. A luxurious safari and spa getaway wrapped up in one impressive package. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. For many years, Wild Earth has taken viewers from around the world to the Mara Triangle, a place of majestic beauty and abundant wildlife. But it wasn't always like this. Before 2001, it was infested with poachers. Illegal harvesting and hunting was rife. Now the situation couldn't be more different. The hard work and dedication of the Mara Conservancy has revolutionized this magical land. But now, the loss of revenue from tourism has created a grave crisis. The Mara Conservancy needs help if they are to continue protecting the reserve and supporting the local communities whose livelihood depend on its survival.
I love being a cam op for Wild Earth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous
but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Well, good morning everybody from myself and David. We'll get into who I am shortly. As you can see, we've got a nice little group of dwarf mongoose. Unfortunately, we've had a delayed start to our morning just due to the fact that the power utility of South Africa seems to enjoy switching off power whenever they feel like it. My name is Tristan, and on camera I've got Davi. Always a treat to be on the vehicle with Davi. It's been a while. And yes, Davi and I have had many an adventure, so it's always fun to kind of bumble about with him. Anyway, as you can see, we're with these dwarf mongoose. We've tracked already what I think is the Talamati Pride, crossing into Arathusa. They, I think, were hastily retreating at the advancing S8 male that was in Buffelshoek, and then kind of turned this morning and went straight back towards the Manyeleti. And then we tracked a female leopard that's gone into Buffelshoek as well, but unfortunately into an area where we can't, follow, and we just don't get any sort of reception in that depths of that area. It could be Klalamba or Kara, I'm not sure. It's an area both of them move. As you can see, that little dwarf mongoose is, well, doing its morning business. It's that time of the day where they come out, absorb some sunshine, defecate, and generally go about their day. They will have been enjoying a bit of sunshine because it was a cold start this morning. It was some frigid temperature. It wasn't after yesterday's kind of overcast, windy, rainy weather. I think these guys are quite happy to just be sitting nicely in the sunshine and warming up again. Also, what they'll be doing is just defecating as a little marker. You can see most of them have run to the spot and are going to the toilets in the same place. So they're all kind of pooping and peeing just in this little patch of sand, and that'll form a sort of sign to any other groups of dwarf mongoose that move around that these guys are here. Now, this particular group is probably one of our more relaxed groups that we get. They're on the main access road that comes into the Djuma, and so their exposure to vehicles is quite high. So they're actually very, very chilled. Once you kind of turn off and stop, they slowly but surely start to come out and kind of move around. And we've had some very cool sightings of these guys playing and hunting and scavenging and all kinds of other things over the years. I think Jamie once had a very cool sighting of them wrestling, not far from where I'm sitting right now. It was very, very cool to watch. So they quality entertainment, these little guys, and like I say, because they've seen quite a lot of vehicles, they're typically pretty chilled, as you can see. Says Van Sale, probably find that they do. The problem with us is we don't get to spend enough time with them to know the intricacies of the groups. Meerkats in Tswalu are so heavily studied, and people are with them so much of the time that they've even gotten to the point where they individuals are being recognized. For us, we don't spend enough time with the dwarf mongoose to know those kind of individuals and to understand who's actually looking after who. But when the babies are small, I'd be very, very, very surprised if there's not a caretaker that's there just to keep watch and to make sure everything is okay. These guys are very similar to the meerkats in so many ways. The way that they kind of go and scavenge, the way that they, not scavenge, but the way that they go and kind of rumble around looking for food. The whole sort of family structure is very similar. So I'd imagine that there is a caretaker that looks after the little ones at the burrows and around the areas that they like to sleep. The thing is, those with dwarf mongoose, they don't always go back to the same place like the meerkats tend to do. These guys are actually quite transient at times, depending on food availability. I've seen them go down different holes, different areas, and sometimes they'll move within sort of, 500-600 meters from where they slept the night before, and they go down there for the night. So they have a whole series of burrows that they have around, and they're not quite as adept as going back to the same place. It's maybe what the meerkats are. But yeah, I'm sure there's the caretaker that looks after the little ones. It's amazing how they've all gone to the toilets in the same place, eh? Incredible. You can see all their little droppings lying around there now. This one I think is having a bit of a tough time. A little backed up. Can't quite get it going. His poor little tail has kind of been above, hovering. And he's been in a squat stance for a while and decided now to give up. All right, let's leave them there and carry on. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Lauren. I think she's going to try and go and find some spots down on Chitwa. It sounds like there's some potential for that, so hopefully she'll get some luck.
Look who we have out and about, exploring. It's definitely not mum or dad, everyone. This is a little chick. Can you absolutely believe it? Now, this is a long-distance visual. There we go. Oh, a nice little zoom in there. Can you believe this? What are you doing, little one? I love youngsters of any species. They are just so curious, naturally. He wants to know what's going on. It's so nice to see you. Now, most people will think that looks like an adult bird. It's not. It's definitely not. It's a very, very young batelier. Not only can you tell by the plumage, we also know that we've been following this female who's been incubating up in this nest here. And the youngsters clearly decided it's time to explore. There's a whole big bad world out there. That's my radio. Let me turn it down. We are going to try and follow up on Tandy and Mareebs. Our search got ruined yesterday, shall we say, by the awful weather. But today, as I mentioned, it's nice and sunny, so we're going to try and see if we can find them this morning. This chick just makes my heart melt. We need to come up with a name. We can't say this chick or it. Davi suggested Belle. Or Bella, I think it was. But I think we can do better than that. Jasmine, I don't believe so. So the chick's sort of at the stage where it's still being fed by mostly mum, but dad's the one that does the hunting. Bateliers are monogamous, so there's a really high level of maternal and paternal care. It differs across the board, especially in birds. But with bateliers, it's a high investment. And at this stage, he's still being fed by mum, I think. I'm only guessing the age bracket due to just following this nest day after day. But slowly but surely, he's going to need to stand up, stretch his wings. And I think that's possibly at the stage we're at now. We have no idea if this chick is male or female. So I need to stop saying he, but it just sounds very insulting. And the first flight is said to be, according to the bird app, anywhere between 95 to 125 days. So that's between 3 to 4 months. So it's definitely not flying yet, definitely. And it's just getting ready to sort of stretch its wings. So just like any youngster of any species, it needs to develop the muscles. So at this stage, I think the chick is just standing, stretching his wings, practicing opening them, practice moving his head, moving his legs. But it definitely will not leave the safety of the nest just yet. Definitely not. And really, if you look at the feathers, the plumage, I don't think it'll have full flight feathers yet. Normally it's got a sort of young coat of down. And when that disappears, then normally the real feathers come in, and this will be the primary and the secondary flight feathers. Feathers all have different functions in birds, and of course they're not going to be able to fly without the flight feathers. And after 7 weeks, I mentioned this yesterday, the parental attendance completely drops. And he's really on his own. Leslie Anna would imagine so, just like a young toddler trips and falls on his face in humans. There will be a few little bumps in the road for birds learning to fly, and especially when we spent a lot of time watching our Sebwig, 2 years ago. That was such a magical time for us. Oh my goodness. I've never seen all the males that I work with coo over a bird so much than I did with Sebwig. And we watched him try, spread his wings and then jump off the sort of ledge and then try to fly, but then end up on the ground. So I'm not sure we would call it a fall, but there will definitely be a lot of trial and error, especially with the way battaliers fly. They have such a unique flight method. That's their unique specialization into the sort of hierarchy of all the raptors. They've got a very, very short tail and extremely long wings. And this makes them very wobbly, as you all know, in flight. That's how it's really easy to identify a battalier in flight. They just look like they're about to fall out. They look so wobbly. And this is intentional. It's a special flight method to allow them to be able to soar very, very close to the ground. So it reduces drag in terms of aerodynamic, and they're able to glide at very, very low altitudes, close to the ground, so they can spot the prey first, get in there, eat, and then get out before the bigger, sort of more dangerous raptors come. And that's why they have this very, very short tail and long wings. It completely reduces drag. Because once the vultures come, the battaliers cannot compete. So considering that, I think this chick will take a little bit of time to get used to flight. And where have you gone? We also do have a little bit of traffic behind us. So I think I'm just going to move forward and pull, let the traffic pass. And I think we've lost visual of that bird as well. There we go. I think a car can get past. There we go. The car can get past. Okay, I'm going to search for Tandy and Mareebs, and now we're going to send you guys across to Deirdre.
So we just pop back to the dam now to see if there's anything else, and other than our 2 shell ducks, there doesn't seem to be that much. You can actually see the wind moving across the surface of the water there, so I can imagine that the temperature of that water would also be pretty cold. So that female shell duck will just be moving the water through the beak to try and see if they trap any microorganisms. They will eat snails, they'll eat frogs, they'll eat plant material, any little insects that they can grab. And that's so the edge of their beak's got a tiny little row of teeth. And they'll use those teeth as a sort of filtering mechanism as they open and close the beak rapidly like that. The water squashes through and the little organisms get trapped by their teeth. Ilana is asking how many eggs do they lay in general. It's just over 10, around about 10. There's always a plus minus. It's never that they read the book and they lay exactly that many, but generally around that. And they'll use some of their feathers to line the inside of a hole, make it nice and warm. And they are a unique species in that this particular one does nest in an underground burrow. they won't make the burrow themselves. They'll rely on a burrow being made by another animal, something like either an aardvark or a spring hare. Can't even stay straight in the water. The wind's just blowing her all over the place. So the question there, I didn't get the handle, but was Sir 50. Was do any birds migrate to Tswalu in the winter? No, we tend to have the migrants in the summer season. They start coming in August, some of the earlier birds, August, September they start coming in, and then generally by March most of the migrants have left, and then there aren't winter migrants per se that come to Tswalu at all. You do have some birds, depending on when they hatched. Sometimes some cuckoos or some of the birds do what is known as overwintering, and that's provided that there's enough food source for them. Maybe they're too late to start migrating, then they try and stay behind, and that's known as overwintering, and you do see that every now and again with certain birds, but most of them prefer to head back north to the warmer areas while we go into our cold winter. So this is just two ducks having breakfast. Kia's asking the question, are ducks considered birds, age 6, because they have feathers? Yes, so everything with feathers is considered as a bird. So, and their feathers are what help keep them nice and warm. Got some other birds underneath there. I'm going to just ask BK is going to go and pan to those two and see what they are. Two juvenile blacksmith lapwings. Also really struggling with the wind and the colder temperatures. These two hatched here. Their parents were also quite dominant and regular at this dam. So they're starting to look more and more like the adults now. They lose that sort of brown coloration in the feathers and go more towards the black, grey and white. in the water under the trees there, BK. There's another little bird bobbing up and down there. Let's have a look. You're also probably sheltering from the wind, and that's the little family of dove chicks. Also an adult and a youngster. Adult on the left, youngster on the right. The youngsters very often have little stripes, black and white stripes on their head, so this one's already also heading towards adult plumage. They really are struggling in this wind to stay in one place on the water. I think they're trying to shelter against that tree there. Those little legs must be working overtime. Florence is asking the question, do I think if the water is warmer than being outside? No, I think if I was one of these birds, I'd probably rather just sit in the sun and tuck my legs up underneath me and just wait to warm up that way. But this water surface, definitely with the overnight temperatures and now with this cold wind, will definitely be very, very cold. So we're gonna move on, see what else is around. Ooh. We were in a nice sheltered section there, now you come around the corner and we just get blasted. So this is pretty much the forecast weather for the next couple of days. Will be icy cold like this. Hold on, BK. Oh, look here, this is a wildebeest regularly comes to this tree. You can see he's made it nice and smooth, this one here. Yeah, the tree there, the wildebeest has made really, really nice smooth markings there. Rubbing up and down on the tree is his territorial marking.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Converging game path will invariably lead you to a water source, but treat all water as suspect. One of my favorite ways of purifying water is to filter out the particulates. And by just filtering it through your sock, you can clear out most of those. You can put water into a snail shell and you can boil it over a fire or using a chemical like chlorine or colloidal silver.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want the wildebeest cross. Is it trying? The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no! Goodness me! Lucky, lucky wildebeest. You have another day to live.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Africa is very special, and when you come down here, even when you're watching through our camera, the landscapes change from desert to bushveld to up in the Masai Mara where there's grassland. That means that the biodiversity changes as we move along Africa. And what I love most about connecting with you guys is the fact that I get to share these wonderful experiences with thousands of people.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We found some of those male leopard tracks heading up and over the hill. Lots and lots of activity on top of them. So, very, very long time ago, last night, early evening. So we decided not to follow as it's heading all the way over into an area we don't normally get any signal. But I was asked earlier about whether the knobthorn makes decent rope. And we've got a little plait going over here. Ideally, when you make a plait, you want to... not that I'm an expert by any means of making a plait. I was assisted in making this one. But you cut your strands quite thin and soak them in water so that they get nice and pliable. This, we just found a bit of bark that an elephant had stripped, and we just made it straight there on the spot. So not very elaborate. But ideally you soak it overnight, and then it gets very nice and pliable, and then you have finished sort of strands, plait them through them, and you get a nice bit of... It's not too bad though, but I don't think it would hold up. Gert says I could make a few of these and then attach them together. Ideally, the smaller and more tightly compacted they are, the better. But that is a nice little bit of twine of the knobthorn. But what I found, and it's something I wasn't expecting to find, is the pod of a scented thorn, or scented pod acacia, Acacia nilotica. And really nice to find these. This is one of my favorite acacias. Apparently, nilotica was the first acacia to be classified, taxonomically classified. It's where the first acacia on the African continent or in the world was classified. And it's why there's a big debate about how Australia can have the name to it, the word acacia, and South Africa has to change it. I'm quite stubborn in that regard. Acacia means to bear thorns. Acaria means to bear thorns, and none of the Australian acacias have thorns. Thorns are an adaptation to herbivory. But these pods, when they are ripe and fresh, so they're quite old now, ripe and fresh, are very green. They've got a beautiful sweet smell to them, and the seeds inside are like a little bead, and you can actually eat them. Right now, though, they're hard, and there's been some insect intervention. Little weevils have burrowed in, and so it's very likely that those seeds, because this was on the floor, has probably been infested. You'll see how it's been bored all the way in there. Okay, let's quickly send you over to Tswalu.
So there come down the road a family of at least 4 bat-eared foxes. So we a little bit further down the road, BK noticed them, so we're going to stay where we are because they're in and out of the road. But if we drive closer, then they're going to run into the bushes and we're not going to see them at all. So they're also probably chilly. Maybe with the cold weather last night and the wind, they haven't managed to find very much food. So they are out looking and moving. They will use their ears just parallel above the ground in order to listen for insects and see. Maybe they're also eating all these armoured ground crickets. Oh, no, they've noticed us now down the road. Oh, that might be it. They might have just been patrolling the road to pick up all the armoured ground crickets. We might, I see shadows, they might come back on. That's a nice little surprise for a winter morning. They are just tucked in there on the left, so just be patient where we are. If we start the car now, they hear us coming and then they run away, so we'll just be patient. So the little bat-eared foxes you do typically find in little family groups like that. Gary's comment is that he's never seen more than one at the same time, so they do move in the little family groups. That's a nice little family group. 4, sometimes up to 6. It's a nice little robin that's just landed in the road there. I think they've gone off. I think by seeing us, they made a decision to go off. We'll just go forward slowly. Maybe we'll see them foraging in the grass. So they'd be looking for insects. That's their main insects, termites, ants. Maybe they're just also trying to find a nice warm sunny spot to lie down. Coming up close to where they were. Their last known spot was here, and I don't see any one of them. Nope, poof, gone. I'm sure it's because they didn't realize that we were down the road, because as soon as we saw them, oh, there we go. Oh, no, BK saw them, but there we go. Well camouflaged in the grass. I see you. You can't miss such big ears like that. Oh. Well, that's them gone for sure. So they didn't see us initially until the one was paying a bit more attention, and then suddenly they saw us, and that's why they moved off the road. But they'll be gone now. Well camouflaged in that grass. You can even see on the horizon there's like this dark grey stripe. That's just going to be all the dust in the air from this strong winds that have just been collecting, so it is pretty hazy, and that's just as a result of the wind picking up a lot of the sand. We can have some really, really strong sandstorms at certain times of the year where it's just so cloudy you can't see 10 meters in front of you. Thought I saw something there, but it's just the bush. We're coming up to an area of open burrows where we often find the ground squirrels, also sometimes the horse or meerkats if they decide that they want to keep these ones company. Sophia is asking the question, do the bat-eared foxes have burrows or dens? So yes, they do have. They do live under the ground in burrows that they'll reappropriate from others. It's just in the distance there, BK. I don't know if it's ground squirrels or meerkats. We'll zoom in and see. I just see two little. Oh, there we go. That's the horses. Good morning. They're at a distance, but they do live around here. So they're busy out foraging at the moment. So the bat-eared foxes, yes, they would live under the ground in little burrows. It's classified as a den when they have pups. That's when you call it a den, but otherwise burrow is also a good word to use. Burrow is a home and a den is when they've got pups. Shows you how alert they are. I mean, they probably a good 800, maybe, 80 to 100 meters away from us. There you can see the distance courtesy of BK, and they're well aware, they're alert. That one's was looking directly at us. So they got incredible eyesight, the meerkats. They need it. They need to be able to see predators from a long distance. And it's very important on a day like today that one remains on guard duty while the rest are feeding. And you'll also see that they're all feeding in a relatively close proximity. And that's because their vocalizations, when they want to say to each other, quickly get down in a hole, they need to all be able to hear that today. So they probably won't spread out too far when it's windy like this. Rather just stay close together and close to some holes to go down if there's any threat. Darcy is asking if there are any updates on the Rockstar's newest additions. So from the last information that I understand from the meerkat habituator, when the female moved them from one hole in the burrow system to another hole, they counted 3. So we still wait and see. They haven't come up as youngsters yet, so probably about another week before we actually start seeing them come up and spend time outside the burrow entrance. But the habituator that was with them at the time saw them moving, so the female was carrying them from one burrow to the next, and that's important. So they've got any sort of ticks or fleas or anything that could be in the nest, or any sort of dirt or anything, they get an opportunity to clean that out and move them to a newer, cleaner den, and that's when they counted that she had 3. You see, they're just trying to stay on a low profile just to stay warm. Jeanette is asking the question, how long does it take to habituate a meerkat colony? It can take well over a year to habituate one colony, and that's because they have to start accepting you first, being there, and they have to realize on a daily basis you almost have to spend some time with them, and you start from very, very far away, constantly being in their eye line, and you then try and find where they go to sleep at night, so that the first thing in the morning when they come up, you're within a certain distance and you're within visual, and slowly they get used to the fact that you're not a threat or a predator, and then you start cutting that distance down over a number of days and months, and then eventually that group will accept you. And the easiest is when they actually do have the pups, because then they leave the pups with a babysitter, and the rest go out foraging, and the babysitter might be a little bit relaxed, but then the pups know no different. So as soon as the pups start getting really relaxed, it actually starts helping with the process with some of the older adults, because they see, oh, well, the pups are not worried, so they shouldn't need to be either. And slowly you develop that trust relationship with them, and then generation after generation, you start being able to spend more and more time with them. And even following them takes time. To be able to walk with them while they're feeding, that also takes time. And not every group of our habituated meerkats is comfortable being followed on foot when they feed, so we just spend time at the burrow and then we leave them to go off in the day doing their own thing, like these horses are at the moment. So the other thing that is also important with the habituation process is that we never go near them, we never touch them, we never pick them up. We totally leave them to be wild, and we don't encourage them to climb on people or anything like that. We leave them to do their own natural behavior. And that also takes time. Even something as simple as zipping up your jacket near the burrows sometimes can send them all scurrying down under because they're not used to those sounds. But over time, they do get used to that, and then you can move around them pretty freely. And the advantage is also they don't see us as competition for food. We're not there trying to take their food away from them. So the guard duty is split up amongst all the adult meerkats. The alpha female probably does the least amount of guard duty because she does all the rearing and she does all that effort and energy. The males and the sub-adult males tend to do a bit more than the females, but everybody takes their turn, and it can average about 45 minutes to an hour. That's their turn, and then they would have to go back to feeding themselves. And that's always a challenge if the group is relatively small, because then there's not enough time to do guard duty and feed yourself. But these horses, they dwindled right down to 3, and they've expanded now over the last year and a bit right back up to sort of 9. So they'll do better and better as it goes because they'll have more to look out on watch. And that also puts strain on the adults whenever you have pups, because as soon as the pups are mobile away from the den, they require food, and the adults have to not only teach them how to find food for themselves, but also provide them with food. So sometimes it can put quite a lot of strain on the group, and they've also got to then do their guard duty at the same time. But all of these horses, they're all old enough now to feed themselves, so there's no stress on the adults. Bernie Lulu is asking the question, do you get meerkats just in the wild, or do you get them in the urban areas as well? No, meerkats only like the arid areas, so also only in the wild. Unfortunately, because they're such a loved animal, people do have them in the pet trade, which is not ideal. They don't make very good pets because they like living in a family group like this. So if there are any in rural or urban environments, it's as a result of somebody taking them as a pet, which is not a good idea. But otherwise, they definitely prefer to be in the wild. So we're going to carry on moving out into the dunes. We're going to send you across to Steve at the waterhole.
Welcome to Leopard's Dam everywhere, our favourite little coffee stop. Nice place to just settle down, but the wind has returned again, so it's not ideal to be walking around in the bush. We've just come down to the dam, see what we can find here. But ideally, not the best weather to be walking around, so we're going to head slowly back into the region of the vehicle. See what we can find, a few in and around there, but an opportune moment to just switch off for a moment and just enjoy the silence. Indeed, Nikki, lovely reflections. You can see the wind pushing the water. Makes for quite a disturbed reflection. The wind is swirling, which makes it quite tricky because it comes from the east and then from the west. Moving branches and leaves around. It makes many animals quite skittish. Most predators get quite active in these conditions. But it does eliminate our ability to hear very clearly. But sounds like Deirdre is still enjoying her meerkats, so let's head you back over to her.
So you were asking for a rock star update, and there they are. We've just been so fortunate that every one of them has been close to the vehicles this morning. So the meerkat habituator has said that the 3 pups were out. So we just keep looking. They're doing some serious burrow maintenance there on the right-hand side, but this is the rock stars. And still 3 little pups this morning. So that's great. It is quite windy, so the pups probably, if they came out, they maybe drink a little bit of milk and then they go back underground. But we can see, maybe we get a glimpse of the little critters. These are the older, the ones in the middle, those still smaller ones. Those will be the older ones. They'll be about 4 months now. If that tends to be the difference, is that she falls pregnant around about a month after she's had pups, and then she carries for about 3 months. So generally, the age gap between them will be about 4 months. So that's the little ones on the right. That looks like the alpha female in screen there, but I can't see at this distance. But this is an entirely new burrow system for the rock stars. So also, as the family expands, I suppose their territory can expand. But also everybody is weary this morning, so it's nice. I think that's the slam dunk for meerkats. I don't think we've ever done all 3 groups in one morning, so there we go. France is asking the difference, how do we tell the difference between each meerkat colony? So they have a certain area that they like to live in, and then it's based on the burrow systems that you find them in, as well as you can recognize the individuals, you can recognize the alpha male and female. And then it goes very much, if you were out in one area and you found them and you looked at the combinations of who was who, how many adults, sub-adults and youngsters were in the group, you could figure out which group you were looking at. So that's how we do know, is that they're stuck to a few burrow systems in each territory, and they generally don't tend to overlap into the other group's territory. So these, basically, I think they pretty much all 3 groups border each other. So technically, the rivals of the Mokalas would be the horses, and the horses' rivals would be the rock stars, for argument's sake, because they are all sort of neighbors. And sometimes, as it goes, the sub-adults, if they want to go and start a group of their own, they'll move on, and they'll also found other areas on the boundary and start a group of their own. So that's also one of the reasons why we managed in the last year or two, during our lockdown, we actually habituated this group, this 3rd group, because 1 or 2 of the individuals in this group came from one of the other groups, and they were already relaxed. So it does make a big difference. And that was the reason why we managed to habituate a 3rd group. And the dynamics can literally change overnight. If there comes a challenger in and he pushes for the position of an alpha male. Then sometimes the group changes where they live for a short time frame, and you have to still work with them a little bit, and they tend to move the group around and unsettle them a little bit.
The Endangered Wildlife Trust fights at the forefront of conservation, across the vast Karoo and sweeping grasslands, in remote pockets of forest, along road networks, across African skies, and in communities to conserve our wildlife and wild spaces. Help us to protect forever, together. Donate now at ewt.org.za.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Hello, Mama. Just checking us out, everybody. There's no aggression here. Very relaxed. A herd of elephants moving around your car like that is truly, truly magical.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
What makes Anbion Pinda Private Game Reserve so special is our massive array of habitats. And with that comes, of course, a beautiful diversity of landscapes, but also an incredible biodiversity in terms of plants, bird life and animal life, as well as, of course, our conservation success stories with cheetah, with rhinos, now with pangolins too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
We're still just continuing our search around Chitwa. Nothing's come up so far, but it's just such a joy driving Chitwa again. I always say this, but I do think it's one of my favourite properties, if not the favourite. I really, really enjoy Chitwa a lot, and of course, when I was last here, it was broken, so it's just such a joy to be driving here again. And this is a Mulwanini, so it's not the Mulwati, it's the Mulwanini. And right down here is where Mareebs loves to hang out. If he's not on First Rock, he's normally down here. So that's why I'm driving extremely slowly. He's still young, so Mareeb's movements are quite predictable at this stage, just like Hosanna when Hosanna was young. They don't really sort of move too far, and then as they get older, naturally they start to expand their horizons and expand their own traverse. But he's still very young. He still likes to know where mom is, although I believe he's no longer sharing food. He's got to that stage. It's just so unfortunate the weather turned so ugly yesterday. I'll just do one quick loop. Tandy and Mareebs together as a duo are really just going from First Rock on Torchwood to Chitwa. Really, that sort of stretch is where we're finding them all the time these days. I don't know the last time Tandy really said food properly in Djuma. James, you're asking how many months does he have left with mom? He was born March last year, we believe, so that technically makes them 13 months, if not a little bit more, maybe coming up to 14 months. So they say that male leopard cubs, they stay with their mom for about 2 years. Now, this is an average figure. It will depend on so many other external factors, but generally speaking, the female cubs, the female offspring, are sort of pushed to independence before the male cubs. So they normally stay, and when I say with mom, we obviously use that very loosely, because he still spends a lot of time on his own, but they will have a bond for up to about 2 years. So if he's about 13, I think he's 13 months, then he's got a little bit longer left of mom. And then, of course, once he gets to that stage, he's going to have to learn what's around him, who's around him, the territories, where he push, and then he'll have to become a territorial male himself. So it's all a process. So as I do one more loop, we are going to send you across.
So we've got the little family portrait there of the rock stars. So apparently these 3 little pups are in the den just close to where they are there. So maybe we'll see them come up. The whole family's now gone to that den. So they're old enough now that the pups are starting to sort of come out. They're only about between 2 and 3 weeks. Probably just over 2 weeks. So they will start coming out and slowly exploring, but they still get left at the den with the babysitter when the rest of the group goes out foraging. And then for about another week or so, they'll stay close to home, and then they'll start foraging around the den, and then go slowly with the adults, hoping to get fed by them. I'm just going to walk. So we're pretty much filming off the vehicle, but I see that there's other meerkats just to the back. Let's see if we possibly change the angle at all. Oh, everybody's just loving that little sunny spot on top of the mound there. I also feel like I need to be a meerkat this morning and just stand still in the sun, but the wind's definitely not helping us out this morning. Kitty is asking the question, how long does it take them to make their burrows? So very often the meerkats will actually move into a burrow that's been made by somebody else, like the ground squirrels, and then all they'll do is constantly modify them. So you saw soil flying up there earlier. They're either digging to make the tunnels connect, or they're just doing sort of some housekeeping. So they will maintain and expand the burrows, but very often the very first burrows that they move into are not made by them, but made by the squirrels. And over the years, as we've known the meerkats, the burrow systems just get larger and larger as they continually come to the new place. If the group of meerkats just gets larger and larger, also then they need more space for them all, and they will expand that burrow system to, like what even at Farburrow, there's lots and lots of holes there. This is a very new system, so it looks like there's only about 2 or 3 holes here. So this will be an interesting one to watch over the next year or two to see what the expansion is with this particular group at this burrow. I'm gonna move you forward, BK, so that we can look back at an angle. We're gonna send you in the meantime across to Fred, who's on a mission, and we're gonna see if we can change the angle here to get you a view of those new little guys.
Welcome back to And Beyond Ngala. We are live with the herd of impala, and you might be hearing the wind blowing. It literally picked up the last 10 minutes. Very, very, very windy. I think this herd of impalas has been doing this morning the same thing that Jackal was doing, and just staying in the open and enjoying the nice early morning sun. Pretty sure not too long from now they're going to get up and start moving to an area where they want to be feeding and maybe go for a drink a little bit later. So our plan for this morning actually has been to go to an area where we've seen some wild dog activity the last few days, and it's been a while since we've had wild dogs on Ngala, and we've been very, very excited because there was a pack of about 17 or 18, and one of the females looked very, very pregnant, and we're hoping that that pack might be looking to den on the property. So we're all holding thumbs for that. Talking about wild dogs and impala, so a group like this would be the ideal food source for wild dog in the property. I think most of the time that I've seen wild dogs hunting or eating, it's been impala. I've got some of the Angie's asking if the females ever fight with each other. Not like those males we're looking at now. Sometimes, there might just be a bit of chasing around, but nothing compared to the males. I mean, for the most part, the females are very, very relaxed together, and it's the males that are doing what we're doing now. And the behavior we're seeing now is exactly just because of the time of year. It is the rutting season. We're in the month of May, which is the peak of the rutting season here in the Greater Kruger National Park. You can see it's a whole, let's see how many there are. It's a large group, a little bachelor herd there that are busy fighting. But I think these ones that we're looking at now have probably lost the battle, because the herd we looked at earlier seems like it's already got a very successful male impala that's probably won the fight with these ones. So the ones we're seeing now, they're probably just fighting amongst each other to see who's the stronger one. It's actually interesting to see also how this time of year, when the males are busy fighting so much, their awareness is so low that they don't concentrate what's happening on around them. And they're quite noisy, so any predator, leopard or lion moving through this landscape actually can hear them from far away. And they'll be able to stalk very, very easily. And so we've seen most of the impala carcasses I've seen in the last few weeks have all been from male impala, and I think it's exactly for that reason. They're busy fighting with each other, they're not looking around, they're not listening, and they're actually making themselves very easy targets. clearly see the tension is high in that group. They're all moving away from that. I listen to him calling. I think he's possibly maybe one of the stronger individuals in that group. He's chased another one. This is quite a distance away, and actually I'm going to reposition the vehicle and go a bit closer because I want us to potentially try and hear them as they call like that. Because it's probably also the time of the year when the impala sightings are more eventful, with them running around, chasing, fighting. Let's have a look what these ones get up to now. Sorry, there was a question from Ingrid about the males fighting. Is the fight over only when the male dies? No, not necessarily. They can kill each other. It is rare that you see it though. One of the ways that can happen is sometimes their horns get completely locked and then they can't separate, and then one of the individuals might even break a neck like that, but then sometimes both will die because then they stuck together. And I've seen it before also where they puncture each other. So right between the front legs where the neck touches the body, sometimes a horn can puncture through there, and so that can also happen. But generally it's more they're fighting and seeing who's the stronger one, and eventually the victor will at least the one that's lost the fight will run off and sees, well, he's definitely not strong enough, and he'll run away. So most of the time they do survive, and then the fight is over for them, because then the one that did win, he knows who's the more dominant one. So it's very nice to actually just see, and you can hear the horns clashing. I think what we'll do is once we've finished with these impalas, we might start heading into the river to see what else we can find. In the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve with something interesting.
Oh, awesome, Fred. Impalas this time of year. We had a few just now and chasing each other on the other side of the dam. Very, very entertaining. Well, we've gotten a little bit closer to the vehicle just due to the fact that the wind is really swirling, and it does make safety a little bit of a concern. So we're all safe now. Life is all good as we focus in on a little bit of lichen. Now, lichen, everybody, is a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi, which allows the two of them to live in an area that they probably wouldn't be able to on their own. As you know, algae is water-based. They normally live in water, and while fungi is part of the mushrooms, pretty much mushrooms to a degree, and they can grow all over the place in the form of spores for reproduction, and the algae does the photosynthesis. The plant itself, growing here on the end of a stick, is able to absorb moisture from the atmosphere, They also break down a little bit of the bark of the tree that they're on, but the two of them living in symbiosis with each other enable them to live in a variety of habitats. And you get multiple different types of lichen. I think there's about 12 different species of the algae or the fungi, I forget the order, and then many species of the other one that come together, which give them a variety of different colors and shapes, also different tolerances for where they can grow. But symbiosis, everybody, if you've never heard the term before, symbiosis is an interaction between two different species, two different organisms. Symbiosis cannot occur between a non-living entity. It is always about a living entity. So two different organisms living together, either in harmony, where they mutually benefit each other, or in a parasitic form, where one negatively impacts the other, or in a commensalistic form where one is benefited and the other one is not harmed at all. So here mutualism is the term given to lichen, where both the fungus and the algae are benefited through their relationship. But they reproduce via spores, which are basically just sort of blown out into the wind. Very old way of reproducing, very old way, and new ways of doing so. We move back to the acacias that we found, and sorry, that just fell into my finger. I got two different little beans over here. This one over here is from the from the Nilotica. The scented pod was inside that bean that we had. And this one over here is actually from a camel thorn, which I got up in the Kalahari. So it comes in a really large earlobe-like pod, which gives the name Eriloba, Acacia eriloba, the camel thorn, and they get really big. Probably you've seen them in the Kalahari Tswalu with the guys there. The sociable weavers quite often have their nests in those trees. But the two different beans, or should I say different peas inside the bean pod, are very similar in their design, but one is far bigger than the other one. And now the pod itself is often eaten, and the animals like to eat those pods. They get benefit and nutrients out of eating the pod itself, but these seeds themselves aren't really eaten. They go through the digestive tract of the animal and then distributed far away from the parent plant. So there's some very nice sort of ecological sort of terms for distribution of seeds, and it's a very easy one to remember. I've detailed this before on the show, but for those new viewers who've never heard it before, the end of the word, just remember C-H-O-R-Y, Cory. Very easy to remember, Cory. Now, if it is an animal distribution, you just add zoo to the beginning, zoo Cory. If it's birds, you add AV Cory. So we had trumpets or hornbills earlier. We weren't able to get them on camera, but many birds will feed on seeds. They transport the seeds far away and they deposit them. You also get some that do it on their own. Some pods will pop open and you just add the term auto Cory beforehand. Some are wind, aero Cory. Obviously, that's quite easy to remember. And then you get those with water, hydro Cory, which means the distribution of the seeds. It's got nothing to do with the pollination. It's the distribution of the seeds. And these seeds, these plants have evolved mechanisms of moving their babies away from them. If the seeds fall down and grow on the ground, they got to compete for light, nutrients, shade, everything else that a tree has no ability to move. But my favorite of all of the Cories is the one that is related to fire, and that is Phoenica Cory, which is obviously the phoenix rising from the flames, and many of our fynbos plants are indeed fire-driven plants. Okay, well, let's quickly send you to Deirdre. It sounds like she's got something slithering on the ground.
Something slithering on the ground indeed. That is a very large puff adder. Had the sun not been shining on the spine there, I would have stood on that puff adder. BK and I got off to get closer to the rock stars to try and show you the little babies, and this python is 5 meters from the hole. So we don't know what's happening, but the python can certainly smell if the meerkats have been active. And this could definitely be a reason for them to move, and they would certainly be vulnerable. It doesn't appear as if any of the adults have even noticed the snake, because it's literally just started moving now, and it's slithering incredibly slowly. Nobody's noticed it, but it's not a small puff adder at all. That's probably a good 60 centimeters at least. And of all of them, the pups would certainly be the most vulnerable. It's just gone into a dip there, just a little head out. So it's looking, I don't even know if the puff adder has actually seen the adult meerkats. So if the meerkats did see this puff adder, they'd most likely try and gather the pups and move dens, because there's a threat from the snake. And that's how close we are to the meerkats. They're having fun and games now. Moondust is saying, talk about being sneaky. Absolutely. I'm probably less than a meter before I saw it. Nearly stepped on it. So sneaky indeed, this puff adder. And it's just moved. Oh, I think the meerkat's just seen it. Yeah, it's literally just seen it now. That there was a little bit of a... But the puff adder's got such good camouflage that even if it just moves slowly and lies and stationary and in wait, they don't... Yeah, there we go. There's one or two more that have been called. So sometimes the meerkats, in the situation of a cobra, very often they'll actually mob them as a group and then try and chase it away. They'll just probably monitor this puff adder and see what it does, where it goes. I think that puff adder is just trying to move to a nice sunny spot. So they move in what's known as the caterpillar motion, so just sort of creeping forward. But make no mistake, a puff adder can move relatively quickly if it wants to, in a sort of a side winding or sort of S motion if it needs to get away quickly. And they are incredibly fast striking snakes. So they have a cytotoxic venom, and that venom in a puff adder basically starts causing tissue rotting. It almost bursts the cell walls and causes necrosis. And it is certainly something. You do have time with a puff adder, but it's certainly, if you were bitten by a puff adder, it definitely would need attention relatively quickly. That swelling causes the skin to expand to a point where it may even burst. So definitely not something that anybody wants to be bitten by. Curious, there's something in the bush. They're all going forward slowly, they're hesitating. Who knows? Oh, yeah. I don't know what's there in that bush. I can't see anything. I can hear one going So I don't know. I'm trying to walk around and see what they can see in that bush, but there's definitely something that's attracted them all. They keep sort of recoiling as well. Very, very interesting morning with meerkats indeed. That puffadder seems to be slithering further and further away. Sam is asking, would the snakes go into the den? Absolutely they would, especially if they think that there's a chance on a food source with pups. There's definitely something in that bush. But yes, the snakes indeed would go down, sometimes even go down before the meerkats, and then they lie in wait to see what comes. There's lots of talking and communication going on between the meerkats, but there was something in there. But now the one started to forage and feed in there, so... Oh, well, it was a snack. It was a tasty snack of some sort. So it is getting quite late for the meerkats, but based on the weather is one of the reasons why they're staying close to home. That puffadder seems to be slithering past, so it's going really slowly, but it is going past. Good thing for them. And then you little pups. Everyone is saying they're so happy nothing's happened to these meerkats. We are too. It is devastating sometimes to know that some of them have been taken by snakes, but they are always vulnerable. There's always predators around. There's aerial predators, there's ground predators like jackals, there's snakes. So especially, I know we're not supposed to get attached to them, but when you spend so much time with them, they do become familiar. We're going to move, just bear with us. I'm going to say, BK, I think we need to move around to the front there because I think those little pups are sticking their heads up there. So I'm going to help BK carry the camera. But okay, so you're going to have to move away from us and then we'll try and see if we can get you another view. But the pups are certainly popping up at the entrance in the front there. So we need to change our angle for the camera in order to hopefully show you the new family members. I just saw one tiny little head pop up, so they're just in front of the feet of those adults that are standing. So we're going to send you in the meantime across to Tristan while we alter position.
Well, I hope so, Deirdre. I hope that you get a few of the little ones popping up. We're just bumbling. We haven't had much luck. I just actually found some tracks now for male leopard. It doesn't look like Mulawati's track. It looks slightly small. So I wonder if it's not Tavangumi walking in the Mulawati.
but going from like Spaghetti Junction southwards, so not the northern side of the Mulawati, which if Colombo does still have a cub, was where it was seen, so it wasn't in that vicinity, it was further south. But they were looked like from yesterday during the rain last night, so a long way away from there would be where that cat is this morning. But just talking about leopards, actually yesterday was meant to tell you guys about an update. I know some of you won't know, but a lot of you that watched back in 2018 will remember a leopard that came through called Kwatile, a young male from Ngala. He was seen 2 days ago now, 2 days ago, in the Manyeleti, doing very well, so he's still alive and kicking. He looks beautiful. He's all big and stocky now, got a big thick neck. Those of you that do remember will remember he was seen with Steve. So that was a nice update. And then the other update was Siseka. So some of you also won't know who Siseka is, but Siseka is a female leopard we saw a few times on Djuma. She comes from the western Sabi Sands and has distributed up into Manyeleti, and the guys are telling me that she's got suckle marks, which is quite cool. So she's also now a first-time mother. Hopefully she'll do well. But she's quite far north in the Manyeleti, not too close to us. I don't know where Kwatile was. I actually forgot to ask, but he was in the Manyeleti somewhere. So that's nice to hear updates on those two. A lot of you have also been asking, particularly Giraffe Girl, you've been asking about Nkuhuma Talamati updates. Sounds like something's happening at Tswalu, so let's just send you across there.
So the majority of them have run off. They've gone off foraging. Literally just left this. There are 3 here, but the 2 look like they're going to catch up with the rest of the group. And there's one babysitter, but she's making like a little barking sound. She's like, ruff, 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 ruff. So at this distance, communication with them would be very difficult because of the wind. Hello, good morning. That one's about 2 meters from us, and it's I'm standing behind BK. It's looking at both of us. But you do realize how difficult it is for them to move in this environment. Look, it can hardly see where it's going through the grass. A really big challenge to go foraging, so they do have to keep popping their head up every now and again and checking what's going on around them. Very, very vocal. Jelly is asking the question, will the snake remember where they are and revisit the site? I don't actually know. I think the snakes are familiar with all the different areas within their territory, all the different burrows and that, so they'd certainly potentially come past again, but not necessarily at the time where the meerkats would be here. But the snakes definitely have a map of some kind as to what is where within their territory, because they even say if you catch and remove a snake, you actually need to let it go relatively close to where you found it by a couple of 100 meters so that it can go back to its familiar area. Otherwise you'll end up potentially putting it in the territory of someone else, and that could cause them harm. So the others are already about 30-40 meters away, so she's all by herself. So now that the safety and the security of the rest of the group has moved on, I'm not too sure if the pups would actually come out now. They'll be down in the burrow. And maybe that's one of the reasons for her constant vocalization, is she's telling them to stay put while the rest move away, because they're now more vulnerable than anything because the rest of the pairs of eyes have moved off to go and find food. It's a tough job being the babysitter, so they'll go off foraging and then do a short loop and come back, relieve the babysitter so the babysitter can go out foraging as well, and then they'll swap babysitting.
Do you dream of an African holiday in unparalleled luxury? Where your days are spent in the company of wildlife and cooling off in your very own plunge pool? Well, this month's prize may be the one for you. Expertly camouflaged into the unspoiled environment of the world-famed Sabi Sand Game Reserve, it's hard not to fall in love with Simbambili. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer before the end of May, and you and a friend could be jetting off to this ultimate escape from reality. A luxurious safari and spa getaway wrapped up in one impressive package. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. The Mara Triangle is a jewel in the Kenyan conservation crown, and thanks to the dedication of the Mara Conservancy, it thrives as one of Earth's greatest national treasures.
We have been experiencing a reduction in the whale snails that we collect on a monthly basis, and this is basically attributed to our intense patrols.
Over the years, this courageous team of anti-poachers has reduced poaching to almost zero.
Mimi naitwa Stephen Olereso. Nimefanya kazi miaka 16 sasa. Kuanzia miaka 2002. Hao wanadamu ni wenye utua sana sana inaogofya ni wale wenye wanaenda kama ndovu. Wanatumia kama bunduki. Sasa hiyo ndio huwa inakuanga hatari sana sana kwa sisi.
As a result of the global pandemic and the massive reduction in tourist revenue, the Mara Triangle is facing a financial crisis. They need your help if they are to continue their ability to protect this magical land.
It's a huge privilege to be in these incredible places with these amazing animals. I love filming lions. When they do get up and do something, it's always spectacular. When they are playing, are incredibly fun to watch, especially sub-adults and cubs. I love being in the bush and working in these incredible places with these amazing animals. We want to bring it to you so that you can almost feel like you're right there and be able to experience it and enjoy it the way we are.
Well, it's a quiet morning for us, so we're going to have a look at a little shrike that is sitting there. I like these shrikes, these southern white-crowned shrikes. They're beautiful little birds. Seen quite a lot of them over the last couple days, or weeks, should I say. They've been out actually in full force. They generally are birds that, you know, we should see kind of throughout the summer months. But this year, I didn't notice too many of them in early summer. It's only now that it's started to dry out a bit that I've seen them kind of being out and about a lot more. You can see it's struggling to stay balanced on this branch. The wind is really picked up this morning. It's weird weather. The winds that we've received are more like our August-September winds. We don't normally get windy conditions like this at this time of the year. It's normally quite cold, but not windy. So, crazy. can actually hear him calling, which is quite cool. Keep quiet for a bit, maybe you'll hear it over the wind. Just gonna fly now. Often when you see them defecate like that, they're thinking about taking off, lighten the load, and then they go. Maybe it'll be good and just stay seated for a little bit. I don't know how it's comfortable on this branch. I mean, you can see its entire body is moving all over the place. The tail's being blown, the branch is moving. Not very pleasant at all. You can see in the background there how the branches are all being blown around. Shame, guy. I feel your pain though. Not a fan of this wind either. But hopefully it'll blow itself out today and we'll have a much calmer afternoon. It'll be very pleasant if it's at least less windy, not quite like it is now. These guys don't normally sit for this long. Very cool that it's decided to stay stationary. And like I said, they got beautiful little markings with that white and then that little sort of black ear collar area that they've got, and then these slate grey wings. Awesome. Nice to do a bit of birding. It's been actually quite average birding weather of late. It's windy, birds don't sit still in the wind, coupled with the fact that migratory birds have left. Anyway, it's that time of the day where we are going to say goodbye to all of you. It's time to head in for breakfast. Hopefully you've had a wonderful afternoon, or morning, sorry, should I say, with us. Or maybe it's afternoon where you are, who knows. But hopefully you enjoyed it. So from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. And we shall see you all this afternoon on our Sun